Here we go, the news and you. Prepper perspective for what's in the news, what we think about it, and how we can prepare. This is for November 10th. For B or not for B? Is that the question? Is it even a question? This article was on the 4B movement, which I really wasn't even aware what it was, but apparently it started in an area where the 4Bs relate to 4 words that basically start with a B or by, and it's about, the article said, fundamentally a basic demand for an end of violence and discrimination towards women, or else birth rates would fall as they boycott men, which is, they said fundamentally just no relationships, no heterosexual relationships, no nothing, no kids. So some things I thought about when I was reading this was, the pendulum just swings all over the place, and the culture that things start in, where movements begin, may or may not be different than your own. So the article also talked about risk assessments, and that's what I kind of picked up on as the basis for this channel, of course. And so just weigh the pros and cons, the risks and rewards, cost benefit of whatever choices you're making, whatever you're doing. Make good risk-based decisions. So regardless of what side of whatever fence you fall on, conduct your own analysis, get your own information, make your own decisions. What's right for you? What's right for you may not be right for somebody else, and the time may change. Things, you may get different information, have different experiences. Things may be different at different points in your life. So make those good risk-based decisions. Develop a range of options. So do a risk assessment. Then develop your options. And then implement what you feel is the most appropriate course given your current situation. So that could be the timing, the time you have to commit to things, budget, financial means, everything. So don't just go right to one option. Do a risk assessment, look at your options, and then implement the one that at this moment feels the best for you. First presumptive human case of avian flu in BC. So this case was detected in a teen. Now, there'll just be increased monitoring, and we'll see what goes on there. But it's always concerning when you see these cases. So mitigation, what can we do? Well, stay vigilant, right? Monitor the news. What sources do you look at? Where are you getting your information from? Limit your exposure when possible. That's the same as anything else. People say, I don't want to be a statistic. Well, we're all a statistic. Either something bad has happened, we're on the bad side, or the good side of that. Something didn't happen to us. But again, don't go looking for trouble or increase your risk if you don't have to. So if you don't have to be in crowded places, in places where there's lots of people from all over the world congregating, don't be. Have your preps in place as well. So that's both again, when we look at mitigation, it's how we can decrease either the probability that something will happen or the impact should it happen. So decreasing that probability, that's where we can limit our exposure. If I don't have to go to the airport, if I don't have to go to big crowded markets, if I don't have to go out to different areas where my exposure is higher, I don't. And then looking at your preps as well. So do you have masks if you want to, if you go the route of masks? And if you don't, what other PPE do you have? Are there other things? Would you have soap and water to be able to wash your hands? Hand sanitizer? Do you have air filtration in your home? Do you have your essentials, your food, your water, your medicine, hygiene products, all of that in place so that if you suddenly do have to, if there's another lockdown or you suddenly say, look, it's too risky to go out, I'm going to kind of hunker down, shelter in place for a bit, limit my exposure even more, that you have that option. You don't have to go out. Do you have a plan? If you have birds, if you have chickens, if you're starting to get self-sufficient, you have that, practice good flock hygiene, right? Do you have separate coveralls and rubber boots that you wear just into the chicken coop? Do you wash your hands before and after? Do you try and do things to preserve the health of your flock? Power outages. Number of articles today. I mean, yesterday there was some too about Cuba or Cuba being hammered again by power outages. Nunavut got their power back on after 3 days without power. Iran, there was articles how they had summer blackouts due to high electricity demand, and they're anticipating winter blackouts due to natural gas shortages, and that they may need to switch over to dirtier generation options. Mitigation, well, what do we do? For as much as I'm behind making the switches to greener power supplies, I always get a little bit nervous when they say, yeah, we're totally decommissioning all of these old methods of generating power. I get it. Sometimes you have to, but again, it's like keeping that old wood stove or that old backup generator, keeping it around, right? If you can have those things, you might have to rely on it if things really get bad. So don't get rid of that old technology if you don't have to, your generating capabilities. Have alternate sources. So that might mean if you're a business, large corporation, or have the privilege of, if you're even an individual, if you have multiple feeds from different distribution parts of the grid or different grids altogether to be able to get that. Do you have solar? Do you have generators? Do you have hydroelectrical generation? Do you have wind? If it's, think about the processes that use electricity and what are the workarounds. So if you're using it for light, what could you use for light if you don't have electricity? Well, kerosene lamps, propane lamps, candles. You could have flashlight with batteries. You could have solar to recharge them. So there's some options if you're using it for cooking. Well, do you have natural gas? Do you have a wood stove or wood for a campfire? Do you have a barbecue or a camping stove? If you're using it for heating, the baseboard electric heaters, do you have other ways to generate heat? Do you have wood? Do you have, can you do it safely, not with propane inside, but do you have ways that are safe to generate heat inside? Do you have blankets? Do you have a tent you can set up inside? Things like that. Make sure you have enough fuel for your generator. So if they're anticipating, problems due to fuel shortages, are your generators topped up and do you have extra fuel? Improve the grid capability. There was a couple articles as well on Texas wanting to put in more battery storage to help even things out and make their grid more resilient. So you could do it on a large scale, but again, work it back to yourself, individual, and then your family, and then your community. What's your own individual grid capability? How's the wiring in your house? What kind of parallel, circuits do you have? And again, reduce demand wherever you can. This is just good for everything. If you can get your demand down, it helps both maintain the stability of the grid in a larger sense, lowers your costs, and lowers your generating costs as well, with not just electrical costs, but the cost per kilowatt of the solar panels that you're going to need if you need that, go that route, or wind. So look at all of those things and try and reduce. There we go. Short and sweet today. Thanks very much. Like and subscribe.